and welcome to another episode of Technophiles Talk, the podcast where we dive deep into the cutting edge trends in technology and explore innovative solutions and discuss the future of the digital world. I'm your host, Manya, and today we have a very special guest with us, a trailblazer in the field of user experience design. As we all know, the digital world is expanding at an unprecedented rate, and the need for intuitive, seamless user experiences has never been greater. But what does it take to design for a billion users? What are the challenges and how can they be overcome? There are questions we'll be exploring today. Joining us is someone who has been at the forefront of a UX design, working to create experiences that are not just functional but delightful for users across the globe. Please welcome Aastha Gupta, a seasoned UX designer and strategist with a wealth of experience in crafting digital experiences that resonate with diverse audiences. Aastha, thank you so much for joining us today.
It's great having this conversation with you, Manya. Thank you so much for inviting me.
And we're glad to have you here. Before we dive into the topic, could you share a bit about your journey in the field of UX design? How did you get started and what drew you into this field?
Sure. So by my studies and my graduation and post-graduation, I'm nowhere related to the design domain at all. So the spark to design was actually coming in from the art and craft, the love and art, love for art and craft that I had during my school days, and then doing graphic designing all throughout the college days as well. And during the college days, because I was pursuing my master's in computer applications and I was not that keen to get into development as a 9 to 5 job or as a career that I would want down the line, right? So I got to know about UX design through one of my lecturer, and I started exploring it all by myself back in 2019. And that is where my design journey started. I started learning, and then pandemic broke down, and because of the pandemic I got like good amount of time to spend on the skills and start working and learning more about product design, dive deep into it, and get a gist out of like what is actually needed, what exactly the domain offers for you to get into the industry and get started with a career, right? So that's how my design journey started, like art and craft, then graphic design, and then finally product design. And in September 2020 is when I joined Zeta as a UX designer one. So my industry like experience started from Zeta itself back in 2020.
Okay,
So yeah.
that's an inspiring journey, Asta. Now, let's talk about designing for a billion users. When we say a billion users, it's just not a number, it represents a vast diversity in terms of geography, culture, language, technology access. So, how do you even begin to approach a challenge of this magnitude?
So basically, as you said, right, we want to design for billion users, right? And if you don't know your users well, you won't be able to design a better solution or give them what they actually expect you to give, right? So it actually starts from understanding the users, understanding what your target audience is, and then actually getting deep down into the problem that is there. So till you don't understand what the user is expecting out of the solution that you're trying to craft for them, or let's say you don't understand the user sentiments in a better format, you won't be able to define a better solution or propose a good solution for them to use. Because at the end, your target audience is your user segment, and if they are able to use it, if you offer a very user friendly and easy to use platform, be it a website, be it a dashboard, be it a mobile application, people want it to be easy and seamless, right? So if you don't know what they want, what they expect you to give, you won't be able to give that desired solution. So ideally, you first have to understand the user. It starts from understanding the user. It could be through surveys, it could be through interviews, it could even be through the different apps that are there out in the market. So if I give an example, I'm working on a product called PayZapp, right? Which is a direct competitor to Paytm, Google Pay, Phone Pay for that matter. So out of like the entire India, more or less is using Phone Pay the most, out of like if we see the market trends and understand the competitors. So even before I was trying to craft a user experience for PayZapp, I wanted to understand the users, and I also wanted to understand what my direct competitors are offering. So like basically giving a solution does not only start with understanding the users, But if you have direct competitors in the market, you need to understand the apps as well, and then only you can give a better solution which makes your product stand out well in the market. Because at the end, if you have multiple competitors, you want to have some USP, some key provider that basically keeps you different or makes you an exception app out in the market, right? So you need to understand the user as well as you need to understand the market trends, what is going on, the latest design trends that are there, because you cannot have a old fashioned design as well when you come up with the visual design aspect of it. So yeah, that's how basically it starts from designing a particular product for a specific target audience, because you already have a target audience for your particular product that you're trying to build. So that's how the journey actually begins.
Okay, it's actually very fascinating to think about the different layers of considerations that go into this. I imagine that research plays a crucial role. So, could you talk about some of the methods or tools you use to gather insights of such user base and everything?
Sure, definitely, Mana. So, first of all, as I mentioned, right, user surveys is one thing that you can actually do. So, basically, you can float Google Forms, you can float type forms through your social media accounts, be it LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter for that matter, and get in more inputs, because that is more of an unmoderated way of getting inputs and insights from the users directly. Another way is through the service itself, you can actually gauge in more users and get on a call with them. Like it could be a phone call, it could be a face to face interview, or it could be just a normal meets call, like you are there and I'm there, right? Similar to that, we can have a meets call as well. So that can actually help you understand and talk to the users, which will give you deep insights about what that filled in the survey, right? That is another way you can do it. Apart from this, you can actually go ahead, randomly talk to people, to just, rather than just talking about the problem statement you're trying to solve, start with understanding the user needs. It should not be specific to your problem statement, right? Your surveys and your interviews can be a deep study that you do with respect to your problem statement, but start with understanding that you don't need that deep insights to start with your first level of research, basically. So that's more like the primary research side of the things that you can deep dive into, because you have easy access to people around you, right? It could be your friends and family, it could be your teammates, it could be your friend, classmates, and anybody out there. Because people need certain incentive, people need a motivation to give that much time to you to get into that conversation with you. So you also need to make sure that the conversation is basically very exciting enough or intuitive enough for the user to have in, so that you get in more inputs. Because if you don't get inputs, there is no value of the research that you're trying to do, right? So that is one way. And the second way would be, as I was mentioning, the competitive analysis build. So over there, you can go to different apps, you can go to App Store, you can go to Play Store, understand through screenshots the app distribution, the app description, and everything. That is one way you can understand that, because there are reviews also that users generally add in on these platforms, right? Or there's a website called appbot.co, but that's more of a paid uh, website. You just have a trial access for 15 days to start with, which is where you get to understand the products way better. Like, what are the user sentiments when they're using that? What are the major problems that they're trying to face? Or how is the app performing since the day it went live on Play Store or App Store, right? That is one platform that you can use. You can also dive into usability testing and user testing once you have your wireframes or visual designs in place. So primary research and secondary research is usually the first leg of your start to solve a problem statement, and it usually ends with a user testing, A/B testing, or usability testing that you do, again, where you talk to your users. So basically, you now show the solution to the users, and you gauge in their sentiments, their experience, their point of view from that. It could be just a Figma prototype, or if you're doing an A/B testing, it's live on your product, right? So these are the different ways you can do, and there are a lot of tools out there in the market. So there's one platform again that is paid, but that's a platform called Pulse 11FS, which actually helps you gauge in videos, screenshots for the app which are not available in India if you want to access them. So that's another platform which you can use. And if you cannot have that liberty, or you don't have that time and bandwidth to actually conduct all of these testings and interviews in person or face to face, you can actually use different tools called useberry and all of it to basically help the users navigate through your prototypes and get a understanding about the things, and you understand about how they are feeling when they're interacting with your solution, right? So these are the different ways you can do research, and which is where most of your users are there and you talk to them.
It sure sounds like a lot of work.
It
Uh,
is, but at the end, it's really interesting as well, because you get to understand. At the end, you will also step into the user's shoe, and because you will be using the product, right? Someday or the other. So you can also understand that mentality. Acha, if this is there, so how do I do it? Right? So that also comes into picture.
Okay. So once you have all this data, how do you ensure that your designs are inclusive and accessible, especially when considering that users with varying levels of digital literacy, like some are very highly advanced while some are not. So how do you consider that?
Right. So that's a really interesting question, Manya. But the point is, we don't solve for the people who are like too tech savvy, right? Or who are barely not tech savvy. You have to find a middle ground so that anybody belonging from somebody who is not using a smartphone or a laptop or a desktop to somebody who uses all these like devices for everything that they do on a daily basis, we cannot solve for those edge cases, right? We have to solve for a middle ground wherein we know a little amount of digital literacy is there. They know how to basically interact with a basic device. It could be a basic mobile phone also, right? If I'm trying to because at the end you have to divide your product in a way, whether you're trying to solve for, if I talk about Indian audience, the solution has to cater to multiple tiers of the cities, right? Tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 cities. Certain cases, a few apps or a few products are designed only for tier 2 and tier 3 cities, which is where your user experience has to be way more simpler, because again the load time of the product has to be less, like that has to be taken care by the designer as well as the developer when they work on it. So that is where the difference of the way you design solutions for tier 1 city and tier 2 and tier 3 cities actually might come into picture. But usually we try to solve it for anybody belonging in India, like because I'm working on an Indian product, so I have to solve for people belonging anywhere across the country, right? So that is where it has to be a simple user experience that I offer on my product, rather than giving them complex user experiences, lot of navigation involved, or a few jargons in terms of the way the content has been drafted, or there are words which are not that easy to understand, right? So all of those things have to be in a way that even if a kid reads it, right, it has to be easily understandable. So that is how we have to envision the way we design and we draft the content or the copies that are written on the product. So, and at the end, because we have a very diverse culture in India, right, we have to have that product inclusive. It cannot be that in the zero stage of your product you offer everything to the user. So when you are trying to build a MVP version of your product, you can roll out minimum features out, and you can understand what people are feeling, how people are feeling. That is where you get in data. Then already you have a lot of insights from the research that you did in the first step of your design process. But now, because you know what kind of users you had talked to and what kind of users you're trying to solve, you'll find a way out and use very simple interfaces, which is again, when I say simple, it does not have to be boring or a flat design. It has to be intuitive, it has to be exciting enough, it has to hook the user to the product. So you can use, like, rather than using like too jazzy animations or illustrations and everything, or colors, very bright colors, you can have saturated colors, you can have minimal illustrations and interactions, so that user feels, yeah, this is a very smooth app to be used, right? Like when I navigate, I can understand, okay, the flow is so seamless that I would want to use this app repetitively. So that is where you hook the user, and you can do that only if you know your user segment. If you know your target audience better, you can give a better solution to them. So it's like your research and your design process goes hand in hand, because at the end, insights is what you use to come up with the solution, and at the end the solution that you come up with is what will go back to the users and test it out again. So that is how you like ensure that the inclusivity is there. Anybody out can use the product who falls into my target audience.
That's incredibly insightful. Inclusivity is key, especially in today's world where digital products are becoming integral part of everyday life. But with such a large user base, there are to be some trade-offs, right?
Right.
How do you balance the need for simplicity and functionality with a desire to create a visually appealing and engaging experience?
Okay, so basically that is where minimalism comes into picture. So your design has to be, as I was reiterating before, also simplicity, easiness of using the platform, right? You have to ensure that the product has that. So you cannot have everything on one screen. Divide things into multiple different screens. So let's start with a small example. Onboarding to a particular product, right? If you have six input fields there, will you want like would you want to actually fill in that data, get onto the on app and then start using it? Or if you see two input fields on one and then you click on a particular button or a CT and then proceed further, you would want to have that experience, if I ask you that question. So I hope the answer would be the second side of the things, right? Where you just see minimal things on your screen, you just have two input fields, you click and then you go ahead and then add in more data and then proceed it, right? Which is where minimalism come into picture. Like the minimal amount of content you have on the page, the easy it is for the user to scan. The easy it is for me to register that okay, fine, this is what the product is asking me on the screen. Let's fill in and then we'll see whatever is there, right? So that is how you can bring in that balance in the design. Like you are not skipping steps. You are just dividing those steps into multiple different screens, I would say, or one step into multiple sub steps is what you are trying to solve for. So basically, I work in the fintech industry. So the way the onboarding process is actually structured on the product, right? It's too lengthy because you have to do a lot of security checks. You have to do background verifications in order to, issue, let's say, a credit card to the user, or a prepaid wallet to the user, or finally getting them onboarded onto the app, which is where we first of all we don't want the user to feel overwhelmed that why is the platform asking so many questions to me, I just wanted to use it for so and so purpose, because we as users have an idea that this is what I want to use that app for, that is why we download it, right? Like, giving another example, we download Uber or Ola for that matter just to do a small auto booking or a cab booking, correct? Now, if you experience a format wherein instead of your mobile number, the product asks you for 10 different things during onboarding, would you onboard it? Like if I ask you that question, no, right? So that is where they brought in minimalism, that just enter your mobile number, verify using an OTP, and you are done. Now just give location access and get the booking done for yourself, be it a cab, be it an auto, be it a bike, whatever you want to book, you can easily book it. So that is where you have to bring in that balance, that you don't overwhelm the user, you don't give in lot of information to the user in one step. Divided into sub steps, be it onboarding, be it retaining the user or keeping them hooked to the product. Like there are different levels of the product that you are in. So first it starts with onboarding the product, basically the basic sign up process that is there. Then once you are done, you want to keep the user hooked to your app and not hop into any of your competitor apps, right? So that distinguishing factor again should come into your app, that people want to use that app rather than going to your competitor app, for example, right? Or dropping off from your journey, because at the end, as a designer, as a person working on a product, my main motivation would be to solve it for my users and make it a big product in the market, because at the end business is what matters, right? So which is where user and business together should be there, and the designers are responsible to basically give that seamless, not so overwhelming experience to the user, that they want to use that app, which eventually brings in revenue to your company, or even if it's your own product to you. So that is how the balance has to be achieved, is what I feel.
That does sound like a very delicate act because one of the things that often comes up in discussions is this So, like, when you do this designing, so what are the importance of staying ahead of like trends? How do you keep up with ever evolving landscape of design and technology, especially when designing for such a broad audience? Because like designing is something which is evolving day by day. One thing is trend today, and one thing is another tomorrow.
Right. So that's a really nice question, Mana. So basically, in design, you don't have a definite area that you can learn about. Like the amount of learning that you get in product design is it's too deep. And if I talk about the breadth also, it's too vast in that case. Like every now and then, there's a new trend that is coming up. So we started seeing neomorphism through cred. So cred was one example who brought in the concept of neomorphism, where you were using like different types of shadows to elevate things or bring in a new visual style which was not flat design, right? Slowly, gradually, when we saw people are having that mapping where they map real life things to the digital interface, right? That is where skeuomorphism came into picture. So like you have to keep on experimenting different things, you have to keep learning. Like it's not that, so I work in a fintech company where I have a lot of people around me to interact with, right? But that's not the only place where I'll get to learn. Definitely, I get to learn a lot from my teammates. And if I say not only design teammates, but from product team as well as from engineering team, there are a lot of different areas of learning that I get when I collaborate with them. But that's not the only way where I get my learning from. Like there are different blogs that, so if a person is a lot into reading, right, they can go ahead and read a lot of medium blogs are out there in the market, or people keep on writing their experiences, or if they come up with a new thing, or if they come across something which is like worth sharing. Even LinkedIn has become a platform where you can go and learn about it. So you can learn from the community, I would say. Like there's a lot of learning you get when you have a community around you, or you are into different, so there are different design communities also out there today, right? Like when I started back 4 years back, there was no such thing where, and definitely it was more like I was in the pandemic era also, so I didn't had access to interacting with design communities, going for different meetups and events that are happening around. So specifically, if I say a lot of metropolitan cities do have a lot of meetups happening, like specifically like Chennai, Bangalore, Mumbai, Delhi. Every now and then I keep seeing some kind of meetup happening or the other, where product designers, product managers also come in, and they gauge a lot of learning from each other. So like interacting with people definitely brings a lot of learning. And if you don't have access to it, by let's say you were busy and you couldn't attend any meetup, right? Or you want to get into understanding what a particular person posted on LinkedIn, feel free to reach out to that person, because today I've learned that like if you reach out to people for learning something, right, they are very open to sharing their insights, they're very open to sharing their learnings with you, because at the end you learn from people. And if you cannot learn from people, if you don't have that opportunity to do that, or you didn't come across any such opportunity which you could have grabbed and basically interacted with people, then there are products out in the market. So honestly, I love the way Cred and Swiggy have the interfaces on their apps, right? Like, it's too great for me to use it as users. Even for that Zomato, right? The way the notifications that they send, they feel so personalized, and actually at times they do bring a smile on the face also. So that is where they are trying to play a role. So you can get learnings from different competitors, or not even competitors, but different products out in the market. So there is a personalization which all of these e-commerce apps bring into picture, right? Which is what you can take as a learning and you can bring it on your product, that can be reflected. So that is how you can map your learning to your day-to-day work as well. So I would say there is no single place of learning, because design is deep enough where you keep learning every day. The more number of people you interact to, the more number of things you explore, the more you get learning. Like even for me, getting inspiration is not exactly from people or from just different products. Like even if you see around you, a lot of things you'll see. Like a small usability example is the way the lifts are structured, right? Like now as a designer, I feel I apply in my design brain everywhere. Like if I have a minor uh, problem or inconvenience in accessing or using certain product, I feel like okay, fine, had it been, it was solved in a way, I could have done it this way, right? But again, if certain things are designed in a way, there is definitely a lot of thought process put into it. There is a design decision taken to it. So I cannot go and like just crib about how a particular thing has been designed because I'm a designer and I feel it could have been done better, right? I have to understand why it has been done like that. And again, how do I understand that? I can reach out to people and I can talk about it to people, right? So that is what people are today doing. Like, even if they feel there is a small thing, they post it on LinkedIn. They get in feedback and comments there. They have a discussion through social media. So social media is definitely one way to learn a lot, right? But again, there's no single place. There is no defined place ki you can go here and just learn everything about it, because that is not how you can learn design, to be honest. There is no single source of truth for you to understand, or like remain hooked to the different trends that are there out in the market.
Does it actually happen to you like you see an interface of a new app and you think, oh, I could have done it like this?
Not exactly an app, but yeah, a recent thing happened. So I was visiting a friend in Bangalore, and so basically, in the apartment, there was a board which was, pointing towards the house numbers. So that floor had like four house numbers, 11, 9, 10, 11, and 12, right? And 9 and 10 are on one side, and 11 and 12 are on the other side. So the way that signboard was made, right? That made me think like, why is it done in that format? Like, because the first time I saw it, it was very confusing for me to understand, like, is 9 and 10 pointing towards the right, or is it 9 and 11 that's on the right and 10 and 12 are on the left? That is how I was confused. But then I realized, and I asked that question to my friend as well, like, why is it in this format? And then there was a decision that felt it made sense, that the first row is talking about the right side of the things, the second row is talking about the left side of the things. But the way that signboard was designed, in the first glance, it was very confusing for me. And that is where my design brain came in, and it was like, had it been I was the person who made that signboard, I would have done the opposite thing. I would have made it a little more easier. So yes, that does come in, because once you get into product design, it's very difficult to think as a normal user. That is what I'm experiencing today. Like, half of the time my design brain starts to kick off and I'm like, okay, fine. This is really nice. Or why is this done this way? So I keep on questioning when I see things, but definitely there's a lot of thought process people put in when they design something. So that is what you have to actually value and understand. If you really have a problem, make it a point of discussion with people on social media, probably. Or if you know people working on that particular product, you can reach out to them and get that understanding as well. So yeah, that has been the case for me, to be honest.
That's actually very good advice. So, as we wrap up, what are some key takeaways or lessons you've learned from your experience and that you'd like to share with our listeners who might be aspiring UX designers?
To be honest, if you love talking to users, if you love collaborating with different people out in the industry, design is definitely that place that can give you that opportunity to talk to multiple people and to understand. So let's say I work for Indian audience, I have understood a lot of patterns that come across when I talk to my users. Specifically, like, there was a time when I used to think like, this is how I can do it, probably this will solve for everybody. But one learning that I've got, the more number of people you talk to, the more number of insights you get, and that actually broadens your thought process. So it's not that you just talk to four people and you get a bias and you go ahead and define a solution to the problem you're trying to solve. So you should talk to, like, again, the time is what plays an important role in everything that you do. So it's ideally, if you have good amount of time, I would suggest, like, talk to multiple people. If you are really keen to know about design and get into it, talking to people is what you can do. Like, that is going to be the topmost thing that I've learned. Like, because when I started design, I didn't know that I can talk to so many people, right? And I can actually know about it in that detail. And also, the art of storytelling is something that I have learned over the time. Like, you need to be a good storyteller to be a good designer. Like, because that is how you can make it more accessible, the information that is there, even if it is complex, you can make it accessible and engaging if you know how to tell a story to people. Like, even if I say a small example, till date if people ask me what do I do, right, it's very difficult to explain them in that technical format what exactly product design means. So I have to use very simple words. Okay, fine, what do you see and what do you use on any app that you use today? Because majority of the Indians are using mobile applications, right? That is how I have to tell them what you see and what you click on is what I design. That's what I do. That's my day-to-day job, right? So you have to tell them, like, that's how easy, like in that easy words that they understand and they register it, right? And challenges, definitely challenges is the key to success, and if you don't have challenges it will be really boring for you to solve a particular problem statement. So you should have like alternative solutions. It's not like you come up with just one solution and you're like, okay, this is what I'll give as a solution to the problem statement. The first solution that comes to you may not be the correct solution that you're trying to give to your users, right? So the more you iterate, the better solution is what you give to your users. So again, that is how you can get in a better idea, you can get in a better perspective as well, and keep on interacting with users as much as possible, so that you get that clarity. This is how you want to, this is how you want to solve that particular situation. Because again, the more amount of perspectives that you get, the best solution is what you can deliver, right? So that is where collaboration comes into picture. You can't work alone as a product designer on a particular product. You need writers, you need visual designers, you need product managers to give you an idea, and for example, like at the end you need developers to code it out and release it in the market, right? So that you achieve all the OKRs you have for your business or whatever business ideas you have to meet. So yeah, that is definitely something that I have learned over the like time, over the period of 4.5 years that I've been into product design.
That was great, Asta. I really enjoyed what you taught right now. Thank you so much, and your insights were incredibly valuable. And I'm sure our listeners have also gained a lot from the discussion. So, before we go, can you tell people how they can connect with you or follow your work and stuff?
You can reach out to me through LinkedIn as well. Like, there's no problem. And if you reach out to me on LinkedIn, I'll be easily available to you to reach out, like reply back or help you with anything. And there's a top mid place where you can set up a small one-on-one session also if you really want that, a conversation to get onto and understand that. Because I have learned a lot from my team, from the community as well. And if I'm getting that chance, I would definitely want to have conversations with people and help them. It could be if you want to switch your career and get into UX design, I can help you with that. Like, whatever, I'm open to conversations. I can share my LinkedIn profile, my top mid profile with you. You can like share it with people, and that is how people can reach out.
Okay, thank you again, Asta, for joining us today. And to our listeners, thank you for tuning in to this episode of Technophiles Talk. If you enjoyed this conversation, be sure to subscribe and leave us a review. And stay tuned for more insights and discussions on the latest in tech. Until next time, keep innovating and pushing the boundaries of what's possible. I'm Manya, signing off. Thank you, Asta.
Thank you so much, Mana. It was great talking to you.
I really enjoyed the conversation.
Same here.